my connection with Chesterton is, I helped get our local Chesterton Academy off the ground in its first couple of years of existence, and it's pretty well known out there nowadays. But at the time, back in the mid 2010s when we got started, it was the second Chesterton Academy ever to the Mother House in I think Minnesota, right?
Yep.
And admittedly, I was just getting introduced to Chesterton myself. It was in the name. I decided it's probably a good idea for me to be up on this gentleman, and then I got hooked. I mean, I know a lot of people, and you probably don't recommend this. I think I heard you on our friend Jonathan Mollick's podcast, We Are the Easter People, saying, don't start with orthodoxy unless you have a philosophical background, at which point it's maybe okay. And so I started there, but I was really gripped when he did the biography on the life of St. Francis of Assisi and St. Thomas Aquinas. The book that I had was a combo of both of them in one publishing. And to your point, he pulled off what many argue is one of the greatest biographies on the life of St. Thomas Aquinas of all time. And yet we don't really have a whole lot of proof that he even did a lot of his due diligence on the man. He just somehow one genius put himself in the mind of another genius, because that's how geniuses operate, and was able to infer all these things about his life, and somehow it came together with all this total cohesion.
Yeah, I think they asked one of his secretaries because he would dictate a lot. He would write, but most of the time he'd dictate to a secretary and they would write.
Oh, he was like Trumpian in his ghostwriting.
And he was sort of a Thomas Aquinas, where he could be writing something and dictating something and maybe dictating something else at the same time. So he could keep 3 separate projects going for that at the same time. Anyway.
And that reminds me of chess masters. Again, all of these just nods to, the genius of a mind that can pull that off.
But I love the story with Thomas Aquinas, that book, where they asked, I forget which one it was, it might have been Dorothy Collins, did he read Thomas Aquinas? And she said, well, I think that he ran his finger over the spine of the Summa, possibly, but yeah, but he also, I don't know if there's a real good account of his study habits, other than the fact that he was just ravenously reading everything all the time. His giant pockets would be stuffed with books. He'd accidentally walk out of the bookstore reading a book before paying for it, and they set up an account in the local bookstore so that Francis could go and pay the tab. He basically had an open tab at the bookstore because he would forget. He'd get so engrossed in the book that he would just walk out with it without paying.
What an addict.
But he would just everything, popular stuff, older stuff. He never claimed to really read a lot of strict theology. I think that he keeps it kind of mysterious. Some things he doesn't really explain exactly how he got where he did. But I think there is a book that was written though of a bibliography of what Chesterton probably as far as we know, what did he read? Someone put a book together. I forget who it was, but it's if you want to put the same information in your head that Chesterton did, here's a book. And I don't know if that's a pretty big task, but
sure. I
haven't looked at it. But it is kind of, I don't know, he was just sucking up information and could, I don't know how to describe it. Whatever went in, it just got incorporated. Nothing was lost, and it would get put into the framework of everything, and he could just spit things back. But he hated, you'll never find a footnote in any of his writing. So he'll quote things, usually from memory, so he could do whole passages and remember what he said, but he wouldn't quote. He'd get things wrong occasionally, so the publishers and even some of his friends were like, Chesterton, if you could you be a little bit more scholarly about this? And he was like, no. I'm just here to
marching to the beat of his own drum.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's a few things that could be said about that. I want to circle back on something you touched on just for a moment, for all the incredible women out there. The fact that you wouldn't have a Chesterton without Francis. His wife, that can be maybe, some might argue that's a downside of a genius mind. It's you're so go a lot of times that some of the basics in life, the basic hygiene that's necessary in order to do the normal day-to-day tasks can get delegated to another. And obviously his wife loved him, right? I mean, she took care of him. And so I got a lot of love for her because we wouldn't have him without her. And also, I want to circle back on what you mentioned about him being a journalist. You know, I was recently reading an article that made a really interesting point that, you know, journalism has always historically been a blue-collar job. It's been a blue-collar task, and unfortunately what we've seen recently, I don't know if anybody's noticed it, but liberal elites have taken over that career path and have radically transformed what it used to be in their own image to the point where I don't even know, you know, if we should maybe come up with another definition for it. But journalism proper is actually a very blue-collar task. It's very like, you know, work by the sweat of your brow, you know, like find the truth. And that's really the philosopher's quest, right? Like follow the truth wherever it leads, regardless of the personal cost, right? So there can't be an agenda involved. There can't be personal gain involved. And so I'd love to, I don't know if you know a lot more about how Chesterton related to that noble profession, but that would be interesting to circle back on. And maybe that's enough to dive off on so far, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's one of Chesterton's best attributes is that he was prophetic, which just in the ordinary sense of he would see where things are, where they're going, and be able to accurately predict if we continue down this road, we're going to end up here. And sometimes with like scary accuracy. Yeah. And one of those things, even in his time, because we're talking about, you know, getting out of the Victorian era into the Edwardian era in the early 1900s. You know, he lives through World War I, he dies before World War II, and throughout all that time, he did point out a lot of the time about journalism and criticism and how it was devolving into like just like you said, that it's not about facts and just reporting actual news. Now it's more about guessing about what, like, you know, opinion. The news is becoming more opinion. It's becoming more about what factions you're a part of.
Sensationalism to get the clicks or whatever.
Yeah, or just like appeasing people for whatever type of thing. Like, you want to be angry, read this one. If you want to be placated, read this one. So, yeah, he definitely, that's something that he, like just one particular example of like a literary giant of the time. Nobody knows him anymore. A.C. Benson. So the brother of Robert Hugh Benson, and they were both the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Robert Hugh Benson became Catholic and was like very persecuted by his own people for doing that, because if you're English, you become Catholic, that's a no-no.
Did he like tell the Archbishop you're actually just a layman? Like, what did he do to get persecuted?
Well, just
by the way, that's true.
Just by being being a priest and being the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the Church of England, and then saying, I'm going to go over the Tiber and go to Rome. That was just like abandoning your country. That was like, you are no longer a good citizen of England anymore. Anyway,
that's when nationalism is a bridge too far.
Right. Yeah.
You're putting the state above, you know, your personal ethic.
Yeah.
And obviously, hopefully, you know, the virtue of patriotism being what it is, you can be proud of a country that stands up for freedom and the principles. You know, our God-given rights. But in any event, that could be a whole episode.
I'll just conclude my bunny trail and go back to A.C. Benson. But sure. Robert Hugh Benson wrote Lord of the World, which is, I think I heard it's Pope Francis's favorite spiritual fiction.
Okay.
I don't know how many. Well, it's one of his favorite novels that he has brought up before. And I think Pope Benedict also mentioned it, and others. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a dystopian end of the world. The Catholic Church is really small, and humanism has just taken over. And the way that they do that, Robert Hugh Benson did a good job. Anyway, his brother, so that we got the staunch Catholic convert over here. His brother, they were all of his siblings were like literary geniuses in some way. They either did poetry or they were in journalism or novels. So A.C. Benson, I forget what the AC stands for, but
air conditioning.
Right, yeah.
Invented in Buffalo. You're welcome, Texas and everywhere else.
The only reason I bring up A.C. Benson is that he was a priest in the Church of England who did a lot of writing about basically trying to make Christianity be about being comfortable, about very like incorporating Eastern mysticism of like, this is just about emptying your mind and pushing out all the problems. And Chesterton saw this and he was like, this is awful. And part of Chesterton's style in a way is sort of a reaction against that and being like, we need to wake people up. So the way that Chesterton writes, it can be very jarring sometimes. Like he was like, we got to wake up and think rightly again about these things. So yeah, he was both in the way he was writing and what he was writing about against the journalistic, the popular mindset. So, and it also helps to be like, we complain about how bad things have gotten now, but he was living in it, just in like, it was germinating and he could see it. And he was like, this is something that's been a long, like,
time coming.
Yeah.